Hey everybody, Dirili here. Thank you so much for joining me for this Let's Play of The Men of Yoshiwara. Now we are pursuing Hayabusa. Wait a minute. Was his name Hayabusa? Hayato. I think he is my childhood friend. And let's see. We just met back up again, and turns out he is working in the Pleasure District. So let's get started again. It was about my lost articles. Oh yes, by the way, this is chapter 3. Even though this is my part 2 for him, this is chapter 3. I'm probably going to read 2 chapters per episode, per chapter of mine. It was about my lost articles. On the first night to Yoshiwara's Pleasure District, I was reunited with my beloved older brother figure, Hayato. I wondered if everything that had happened that night was a dream. Just as I was having those thoughts, a letter arrived. I wonder who it's from. There was no name on it, and I couldn't tell who the sender was. I timidly opened the letter, and the writing was powerful, masculine yet elegant. It's from the person I'd met at Kikuya the other day. The sender didn't name himself anywhere in the letter, but he did mention our fate meeting and how he wanted to meet again. Apparently he knew who I was. I thought it was strange that he didn't name himself. I was curious about my lost belongings, so I headed towards Yoshiwara that night. As night fell over Yoshiwara, everything turned dazzling, and it overflowed with people. I wasn't accustomed to the liveliness and hesitated. I felt a little calmer than I had the previous night. Nevertheless, seeing everything happening around me made my head spin. I tried to avoid the courtesans looking outside, trying to attract customers. Before I knew it, I was running down the street toward Kikuya.
Oh, miss, why are you so out of breath? Our courtesans aren't going anywhere.
I stampeded into Kikuya, and Iroha looked down at me. He started to giggle. Oh, I'm sorry. Realizing how shameful I was being, my cheeks flushed red like a ripened tomato.
Think nothing of it. I'm sure the courtesan you've got your eye on will be excited to hear how you rushed over.
I became even more embarrassed at how scared I was of the Pleasure District and shut my mouth.
Who would you like tonight, Miss Misao?
Actually I received a letter without a sender, and it told me to come to Kikuya.
Oh? Could you show it to me?
Yes. Iroha promptly skimmed the letter after I handed it to him. He quickly folded it and handed it back to me.
That's Hayabusa's writing. I swear. Why didn't he just write his name?
Hayabusa.
Wait, I don't remember Hayabusa being at the banquet the other night.
As I saw Iroha tilt his head, I felt my heart start to race. Could it be... was it him? Right at that moment...
She's an old friend, Iroha.
His voice rang out, and I looked over to see who it was. A single courtesan wearing a beautiful kimono showed up from the back. My hunch was right on the mark. Big Brother Hayato!
Big brother?
Iroha looked confused, so I quickly shut my mouth. I wasn't sure if it was all right to tell him about our relationship. In all the confusion, Hayato started to talk.
What's all this fun about?
Tokiwa suddenly wedged himself into the conversation.
Tokiwa, you're supposed to be advertising yourself. Go back to the window.
But Hayabusa left the window. I thought I could hear something interesting if I followed him. I would never have thought Hayabusa and Misao were siblings. Huh?
We're almost like real siblings.
Wow, that's great. Wait just a second. Does that mean you two aren't actually related? I wondered why he wouldn't just properly explain our relationship. His face was very stiff, nothing like it was the other day. Could something bad have happened?
If you have enough time to interrupt people, then get back to work.
But...
Tokiwa.
Iroha spoke powerfully, and Tokiwa shrugged. Misao, you'll have a better time with me than a serious guy like Hayabusa.
Stop it, Tokiwa. Misao's not the kind of girl who would hang out with a guy like you.
A guy like me? Oh,
Is that it? If she likes boring, polite men, then by all means, take her.
Tokiwa snorted angrily.
Stop it this instant, Tokiwa. You're being disgraceful. Oh.
Iroha raised his voice. Tokiwa's shoulders started to shake, and he let out a sigh as if he was fed up. Okay, I'll go back.
Misao, you can be with me anytime you want. Unlike Hayabusa, I'll let you live all sorts of fantasies.
Before he left, Tokiwa looked at me with an inviting stare.
Oh, that Tokiwa. My apologies, Miss Misao.
No, it's fine.
Now then, Hayabusa, why did you call this young lady here tonight?
Hayato started to frown immensely. He then started to speak, clearly in a bad mood.
I asked her to be my customer. Isn't that all right? If you entertain her properly as your customer, then I don't mind.
Thank you very much.
Hayabusa, treat her like any other guest.
Yes, I understand. Hayato slowly bowed his head. He then glanced over at me and gently took my hand.
Let's go, Misao.
Okay. Hayato pulled my hand and took me into a room. It wasn't a tatami room like the one I'd been to during the banquet. It had sweet fragrance and a quiet atmosphere to it. Hayato looked angry. His expression was stiff. He had been completely silent for some time now. Hayato, I don't think you're treating me like a regular guest.
Misao, here my name is Hayabusa.
I wanted to break the silence somehow, but was denied as soon as I spoke. There was a prickling pain in my chest. Hayabusa. Hayabusa? I spoke softly.
Exactly.
He gave me a one-word reply and averted his eyes.
Do you have a taste for alcohol now?
Alcohol? I don't really like it.
I see. How many times have you been to Kikuya? It's forbidden to steal another courtesan's lover in the pleasure district. So, if there's someone you've already set your heart on, I'll have to pretend like nothing happened today.
Hayato, why are you acting so distant? I didn't like how defeated he sounded, or how he wouldn't look me in the eye. I held his hand tightly and made him look up at me.
Misao, I'm sorry, but my name is Hayabusa here.
I know that. Then, Hayabusa, why won't you look into my eyes? You put all that effort into calling me over here, too. There was another short silence. Nevertheless, soon enough he gripped my hand in return. That time, the night we'd been reunited, I'd been so happy to see you again that I'd forgotten about everything else. After we'd parted, I'd had my time to think to myself. I realized that you were the last person that I wanted to meet in a place like this. Lament poured out of his voice. My heart clenched in pain. I might have felt the same way. I missed him so badly and was so happy to see him again. But I didn't want to come to terms with the fact that Hayato was now a courtesan. The thought of him embracing other women with his hands crossed my mind. At that moment, I unconsciously took my hand away.
Misao?
I'm sorry.
Do you hate me?
I could never hate you.
Did you know that I'd become a courtesan?
No, no one ever told me.
But you had a feeling, didn't you? All men born on this island are destined to...
He was right. There was no way I hadn't imagined he'd been a courtesan. But I ran from the truth and pretended not to think about it. Then why was Hayato showing me his reality? With his beautiful kimono and sweet scent, he was staring at me like a lovely, well-seasoned courtesan. But I don't mind as long as you're the same old Hayato.
There's no way I could stay the same.
But you'd smiled at me that night just like you'd done when we were kids. It was broad, gentle, and warm. You'd been the same old Hayato. He slowly looked away from me. I didn't know what was going on through his mind, but his face looked even more stern. Thanks, Misao. Huh? When he glanced back at me, his eyes were warm and gentle, just like when we were kids.
Maybe I can return to my old self when I'm around you. It's enough to make me want to see you every night.
Oh! He wrapped his big, gentle hand around my cheek. As he softly caressed my cheek, I felt so relieved that I was about to cry.
But you already belong to someone else, don't you?
Huh?
Which of Kikuya's courtesans is it? It doesn't look like you or Tokiwa's.
Wait, Hayato. I don't belong to anyone. The day we'd met at Inari Shrine was the first time I'd been here. Not to mention, I'd come to Kikuya from my mom, and they'd suddenly thrown me a banquet.
Is that really what happened?
Hayato brushed my hair and looked deep into my eyes, to make sure that I wasn't lying. His stare didn't falter at all. Yes. I'd met Tokiwa that time too, but he hadn't done anything else.
Really?
Why are you so skeptical? I was even scared just walking here tonight.
Misao.
Huh? In that moment, he'd pulled me by my hips and the back of my head to hug me. I was so surprised that I stopped breathing. My body was frozen solid inside his arms.
Yeah, how should I put it? Ever since that day, I'd been imagining that small girl who'd been attached to me coming here to see another man. I couldn't get rid of that thought, and I slowly secluded myself. That was why I'd been so against seeing you while I was a courtesan. But I kept contradicting myself and even sent you that letter. You can laugh at me, Misao. I've become such a pathetic man.
I understand how you feel. My thoughts have been contradicting themselves too. I see. I guess it makes sense then. He let out a deep breath as he hugged me tightly.
I decided not to see you again until my contract was up, but now that we've been reunited, I don't think I can handle that. Sorry, Misao.
Why are you apologizing? He loosened his arms. I looked up at his face as he hugged me lightly in his arms.
Can you forgive me for wanting to check if you're still pure?
What? You can't do that? Huh?
Pure? They're gonna give her an examination?
I wasn't used to hearing that word and thought to myself for a moment. When I figured it out, my face flushed red. What are you saying? I was so embarrassed that I escaped from his arms and turned away from him.
But I'm so glad that no one has tainted your flower.
You really have changed after all. In the past, you wouldn't have said such an embarrassing thing. Hayato started to chuckle as he saw how annoyed I was. He looked so innocent when he smiled. The atmosphere was no longer silent and unsociable. It was completely different now.
That part of you hasn't changed one bit. You always get mad when I tease you, and your face gets so pink.
All of that is your fault.
Isn't that just how you are? Don't you act like this in front of the other courtesans?
No, I don't know.
Well, I guess that's true. You're better off not knowing.
He patted my head and gently caressed it. The awkward frozen mood was now gone, and the room was filled with warmth. Seeing Hayato genuinely smile made me so happy and tugged on my heartstrings.
Oh, that's right.
He suddenly stood up as if he'd remembered something. What is it?
That night after I escorted you to the front gate, I had gone back to the Inari Shrine, and this is yours, isn't it?
Oh! From the depths of the room, Hayato brought out the things I'd lost. I was certain I'd lost the eloping couple's belongings completely. Thank you, Hayato!
No, I'm just glad I found them. But I did look through this stuff a little bit. How did you get enough money for all this stuff?
Oh, well... I hesitated to answer. I wasn't sure if I could tell him that I'd helped that couple run off. Hayato wasn't the type of person to gossip about these things, but I was worried he might be blamed for the incident as well. After contemplating about it, I finally decided to... yeah, I'm definitely going to want to save there before making a choice like that. Chapter 4, Pinky Promise. Hayato had asked me where I'd gotten the valuables from. I couldn't answer him and was stuck in the thought.
What is it, Misao? Is it something you can't talk about?
Hayato was worried about me and frowned. It's nothing at all. I'd inherited it under some particular circumstances.
Circumstances?
It didn't sound like he was convinced. He tried to question me some more. However, There was no way I could tell him. I didn't want to cause him any trouble. Something suddenly came to me. It's not that important. Don't let it bother you.
Well, it bothers me. I mean, those things are worth so much.
Yes, they are. So, could you hold them for me?
Me?
I quickly pushed the parcel back in front of Hayato. If he could use it to end his contract early, then I was sure he would escape them happily. I hadn't found my passionate love like those two elopers, but Hayato was a very important person to me. After being reunited with him after all these years, the memories of my beloved big brother swelled in my chest.
What are you talking about, Misao? There's no way I can hold on to these things.
I thought you could use it to end your contract a little earlier.
If you don't want me to hold on to it for you, then I can't accept it.
Why?
You're better off having it than me. I don't even know what to do with it. Misao, it doesn't look like you want to tell me how you got those things, so I won't ask. You can't just hand over these valuable items on a whim. Yoshiwara is a lot more dangerous than what you've imagined. You can't wave these things in front of every stranger you see.
You're not a stranger. Why was he talking to me like this? I was giving it to him because he was my childhood friend. My chest hurt, and I slowly restrained myself. It's not dangerous. It's not dangerous.
Huh?
Yoshiwara is where you live, so it's not dangerous.
Even if you say that, I can't watch over you all the time. You need to have your guard up.
He pleaded, and I couldn't argue with him any further.
In any case, take these things home with you, okay?
He said okay, just like he'd had in the past. It was soft, comforting, and soothed me. Why won't you take it?
They're your important belongings. You should use it for someone you really love.
His words stung my chest. I didn't want to hear him say that in such a kind voice. But I have no intention of coming back to the Pleasure District.
Even without coming here, you might be able to find someone to love. You need money to meet a man on this island. Misao, take this home and save it for when you really need it.
That time won't ever come for me. Well, she could leave the island. There's men off the island.
Misao.
Hayato smiled and let out an annoyed sigh.
You're still stubborn as ever. No, did you become even more hard-headed?
As he spoke casually, he took out a small parcel from under his clothes.
Then, let's make a bet.
What kind of bet?
I have some candy here.
Colorful comfit candies were inside the small parcel. My mouth started to water after seeing the cute, sweet, and delicious candies.
You still love these candies, don't you?
That's not true. I'm an adult now.
Really? I was going to let you eat them if you won the bet, too.
I want them! I shouted without thinking and then panicked as I covered my mouth with both hands. I was reeled in like a sucker, and Hayato laughed in contentment. I stared at him bitterly.
Sorry, I just wanted to tease you a little. I'm going to hide the comfit candy in my hands.
Hayato hid the candy in his hands and closed them.
Just try guessing which hand the candy is in. If you get it right...
If I get it right?
I'll take the valuables that you want me to keep.
Okay, and if I guess incorrectly?
If you guess wrong, then you have to take them home, and I'll give you some candy as a booby prize.
I wasn't sure if I should accept this challenge or not, and I stared into his eyes. When I looked into his transparent eyes, it comforted me and made me feel cozy.
So, Misao, which one is it?
He started the bet without my permission. There was nothing I could do now, so I looked down at his fists. Was it the right one or the left one? I timidly stretched my hand out towards his big fist.
Are you okay with choosing my right hand?
Wait, okay, this one.
The left.
Then...
Worry as much as you'd like. You have all night to do this.
Huh? He blurted out those words without warning me. I was surprised and looked up at him.
Will your mom get worried?
I've already told her that I'll be home late.
In that case, there's no problem. So which one?
Even if he asked me that, I wasn't worried about that anymore. My heart was banging loudly on my chest like a hammer. I wanted it to quiet down, and I couldn't think of anything else. Which hand is the candy in? I choose your right hand.
Are you sure?
He looked over at me to confirm my choice, but I couldn't look him in the eye. I nodded slightly. He slowly turned over his hand. Inch by inch, his hand began to open, and inside was... Oh!
You got it wrong. Too bad.
His hand had nothing in it, and I sighed in defeat. Right at that moment, he grabbed my chin and lifted it up.
Here's your favorite comfort candy for choosing incorrectly.
The candy and his fingertips were suddenly touching my lips. His fingers were much hotter than I'd imagined. My heart started to beat even faster. I was too nervous to open my mouth, but Hayato's fingertips slowly pried it open.
It's a special comfort candy. I'm sure you'll love it.
Oh. His fingertips came into my mouth and dropped the sweet stardust candy inside it. The small piece tumbled around inside my mouth. However, I was too nervous and couldn't taste it.
How does it taste?
I panicked and rolled it around my tongue. The sweetness melted in my mouth. It's sweet.
I collected this candy because I was sure you'd like it.
Huh? Why?
For today, of course. But I would have given up if you were too grown up to eat candy anymore.
Hayato started to smile. His smile bloomed radiantly like the sun. Thanks, Hayato.
Since I bought you out then, how about having another one?
Are you sure?
Didn't I just tell you that I prepared them just for you today? Come on, open up.
Hayato took another piece of candy and pressed it against my lips. I can feed myself.
You don't have to be so modest. I fed you like this all the time when we were kids. You always used to stop crying when I put these candies in your mouth.
That was so long ago.
I want to relive those moments, at least for tonight.
Hayato smiled as he said that, but he looked so lonely. I decided to do as he said and opened my mouth.
Your mouth sure is small.
The small candy rolled in my mouth once again. The sweetness did take me back to my childhood.
Misao, the bet's over now.
Yeah.
I'm sure there will be a time in your life when you'll need money. So, take these things home and think about how you want to use them.
Okay.
Good girl. Now, let's pinky promise.
I slowly put my pinky around his. Our pinkies were entangled and my chest tightened up. A strange sense of comfort wrapped around me.
I will use these things when I need them.
I panicked and declared my promise. It felt so nostalgic. In the past, I'd promised Hayato that I would stop crying.
I promise.
Our pinkies slowly drifted apart.
Misao, these things are important. Make sure you bring them home, okay?
Yeah, I know.
Great. Good girl.
He petted my head a little roughly. I shut my eyes and soon opened them as I looked up at Hayato. He was looking at me with his kind smile.
You're staying the night, right?
Huh?
I can't let you go home this late at night. I'd been so worried the other day because I wasn't able to take you home.
I wasn't sure what I should say and my eyes were shifting left and right.
Just answer obediently like you've done in the past. Come on, Misao. Just stay with me tonight.
All right. I couldn't hesitate any longer and slowly nodded.
Come here, Misao.
Hayato laid the bedding over next to him and invited me over. My chest started to feel restless. We weren't in that kind of relationship. I started to hesitate and he smiled as he started to talk about the past.
When we were kids, we slept together all the time. Sometimes you would whine and beg me to stay the night with you.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was. But I can still remember it all clearly. That time your mom had smiled bitterly as she asked me to stay. I thanked her, sounding a little guilty. I loved your mom's cooking, and I remember how cute I thought you were.
Hayato.
I'll sleep next to you just like we did back then. Come here, Misao.
Okay. Hayato was a lot smaller in my memories, but he was always reliable and bigger than me, too. I loved the way he doted on me. Slowly, I slid into bed next to him. Oh! He put his arm over me, and the warmth from his arm wrapped around me.
I wonder why your scent is always so unique.
Do I smell funny?
Of course not. Your scent is pleasant and original.
He took in a breath. My body stiffened as I lay next to him. But...
Yep, it really makes me feel cozy when I'm holding you.
Hearing him say that made my body loosen up. It was like hearing a mysterious charm. You're always so kind.
Only to you.
Just to me?
Yeah, only to you. I'm kind to you because I cherish you so much.
His sweet whisper might have been one of his coaxing techniques as a courtesan. That was what I thought on the surface, but deep down I believed his words were tried and true. Even if we don't see each other again for a few years, even if we don't meet until his contract ends, it wouldn't change the fact that I cherish him. Hayato?
You can go to sleep.
He gently rubbed my back, and I slowly let my body loosen up. I buried my face in his chest and clung on to him. Was it hard for you after you'd come here? His hand suddenly stopped moving. But it was just for a second, and he soon started rubbing my back again.
I think it's a road everyone has to take. If you're born unlucky, you have to go down this road.
Did you say that to soothe yourself?
I wonder.
You're always like that.
What do you mean?
You always listen to my problems when I'm having a hard time and praise me. But when you're having a hard time, you never tell me anything.
That's because I'm a man.
I want to help you out, too.
Misao. Then, if I'm really having a hard time, I'll count on you.
You promise?
Yeah, I promise.
Can we pinky promise?
Yeah, but let's go to sleep already.
Can we do it tomorrow morning?
Yeah, if I remember.
I was sure he was just trying to avoid it. It made me sad, and I buried my face deeper into his chest. He was so close to me, and yet I didn't understand his true feelings. It was so depressing. This might be the last time we see each other for a long time.
Sweet dreams, Misao.
Good night. Hayato continued to rub my back without rest. When I fell asleep, I thought I'd heard him whisper to me.
I missed you so much, Misao. I'd always wished to see you again. I saved up those candies on the off chance that they would make you smile. Plus, what if you found out that both of my hands were empty?
Ah, you cheated. I knew it.
I have become such a good courtesan. What's wrong with me?
Those words might have come from my dream. I heard them on the boundary between dream and reality. Nevertheless, his hand felt warm as it wrapped around me to protect me. I was certain that his words were real. That was what I believed. And we're saving. And we're ending this video on that note. We will continue in the next video. I hope to see you in my future videos, and I'd be so grateful for any likes, comments, subscriptions, or shares with your friends to show your support. Thank you so much for joining me. I wish you all health, happiness, and safety. Dirili signing out. Bye-bye, everybody.